What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. So this is a request that I got for one of my subscribers. They wanted to know how I think Wilt Chamberlain would have played with Michael Jordan with the Chicago Bulls in the mid to late 1990s. And of course, questions like these have no correct answers. It's all fun to see people try to guesstimate how these things would have transpired. So, it is what it is. And I'd like to hear you guys' thoughts as well. Now, me personally, I've been thinking about this for a couple of days. I've come to the conclusion that I think the best version of Wilt Chamberlain to fit that team, because I think we have to remember this is Michael Jordan's team. I'm assuming in this scenario, Wilt Chamberlain is an entity that's playing in the 80s and 90s, a variation of himself, or Wilt Chamberlain just transported into a later time period that hadn't won a championship yet. Because I'm assuming it's the same timeline, but Wilt hadn't won anything. Still a phenomenal player, but had not won championships. And he's playing in the Michael Jordan time period, and he's never won a title. So, in this scenario, let's just say Wilt is 32 years old, but had not won a championship. Phenomenal all-time great player, arguably the greatest center of all time from a performance perspective, but had not won a title. I think Wilt would have to fit what the Bulls need. And what I'm assuming what Wilt would bring, or how he would play the game, would be more like how he played with the Lakers, which is more of a Bill Russell type role, which is more rebounding, shot blocking, putback dunks, interior defender, right? That's the role I think would best fit him, because Michael and Scotty, I think, are going to be the two leading scorers. And you just can't have a Wilt Chamberlain with the ball plodding away down low, just scoring all the time. It's going to fuck up the offense. Now, occasionally, when Mike and Scotty aren't in, then you give the ball to Wilt Chamberlain and let him do his thing. But I think when those guys are playing, it's better for Wilt to play the Bill Russell role, like he did with the Lakers. Also, I think by that time period, Wilt would have been a lot more willing to adjust. Because you also got to look at the chemistry thing, the personality thing. I mean, Wilt was an alpha male. Jordan is an alpha male. They're going to clash. They're going to have arguments. It's going to happen. But I think that it would have worked. With Phil Jackson as the head coach, I think ultimately Wilt's desire to fit in, to prove that he can win, to prove that he's not some narcissist that only cares about his numbers and stats that he can sacrifice. I think the pressure for that will supersede any other, personal pettiness going on. But what Wilt Chamberlain brings to the table, first of all, he would be the best center to ever play for the Chicago Bulls. And in my mind, I'm putting him in 1968, which is before the patella tendon rupture. So he's an athlete near the peak of his physical powers, a little bit on the downside, about 7'1" and some change. I think around that time he's about 290-ish. All right. Now, what was his vertical leap by this time? Maybe in the 40-plus range. 40-plus range, yeah. So, what he brings to the table, he's going to probably lead the league in shot blocking. He and Dennis Rodman are going to lead the league in rebounding. Slight edge to Wilt. Wilt's going to get... Now, one thing that Wilt does bring is that he's going to be the best passing big man the Bulls will ever have. So he's going to give, just from his presence, he's going to give guys like Michael and Scotty extra buckets, just from drawing in defenses and being a great passer. Another thing that he was, and this is something that started dying out in the 1990s and the early 2000s, he was a tremendous outlet passer. The greatest outlet passer perhaps was Wes Unseld, but I think that Wilt Chamberlain was a great outlet passer, and and that would give the Bulls a lot of extra baskets too. There can be certain times when, they're, back in the 90s or what have you, when they're battling for rebounds, and when the Bulls know that Rodman, because Rodman could do it as well, but Wilt was even better. There'll be times when Wilt would get the rebound, Jordan and Pippen will be streaking down the court. Wilt's going to throw a baseball pass right on the money to Jordan for a slam dunk, or for for Pippen for a dunk or a layup, or what have you. Harper, the same thing. The Bulls are going to get some extra points playing with Wilt Chamberlain, and their defense, which is already stifling, is going to be even more stifling. It's going to be even more stifling. It's really going to be unfair. Now, how will they be able to afford Wilt Chamberlain? That's another question. Unless Wilt Chamberlain just accepts a very small price tag in exchange for playing with the Bulls, thinking that he's going to get a lot of money in endorsements and things of that nature. Maybe he'll get a lot of money in other ways. I don't know. This is just some fantasy thing. But, I can't tell how many games the Bulls are going to win. Will there be some chemistry issues earlier on? I don't tend to think so. How many games will they win? I don't know. Probably 72 again. Maybe a little bit more. Maybe they go undefeated at home. Maybe 75-7 or something like that. But what I'm thinking about is the defense. I'm thinking of games that they lost, but it was because Pippen and Jordan just couldn't get anything done. I would think that Wilt would be the fat difference maker in that shit. You know what I'm saying? Man. That's going to be a crazy team, man. You have to have Rodman deal with Rodman and Wilt Chamberlain up front. And there's going to be games where Wilt's going to go back in time and dominate. By that I mean it's going to be some games where Wilt's going to drop 40. Games when Michael's not having it, Pippen's not, his shot's not falling, and, Wilt might have to take up the slack. Wilt is going to power his way. And we're talking about the 90s, so it's going to be games. And we know how Wilt is very competitive, so there's going to be games when he's going up against marquee centers, he want to prove a point. He's going to have games going up against Shaq. He's going to have games going up against Olajuwon when he wants to prove that he's the best big man in the league, but I'm just playing a role. Whether it's through the entirety of the game, or whether it's during certain pivotal stretches, he wants to show, hey, yeah, Olajuwon might have had 30, but I bust his ass in the fourth quarter, scoring 18. Shit like that. But I could especially see him being motivated to score against a Shaquille O'Neal. But that's just a fantasy matchup. I think with Wilt Chamberlain, the Bulls would have still won 3 championships. Probably even more dominant. I think had they been together, they would have had 2 different seasons of 70-plus wins. And, the third season, maybe upper 60s. You know, I just think it would have been even more dominant. They would have won by a record margin of points on average in 96 instead of 12 points a game, which is close to the record held by the 72 Lakers, which the team Wilt was on, by the way. I think the margin would have been more like 14 points a game or something like that. I mean, just crazy shit, man. But, yeah, that's all I can think of. You know, I just think that, I mean, if you want me to put numbers out there, I used to do that, man, but it's hard to say that, you know what I'm saying? But off the top of my head, I'm thinking playing with the Bulls, they averaged 105 points a game that year. With Wilt Chamberlain there, even though I think he'll be more the Bill Russell role, I still think he would average, man, look, just to give a reference, Luke Longley's best seasons was averaging, what, 9, 10 points a game? Even in a reduced role, with Wilt only taking like 10 shots a game, you gotta think he's gonna make at least in that era 60% of his shots. Now, the way that the game is played now, where everything is so open, hell, he might have seasons shooting 85, 90% from the field. But it was more defensive resistance back then from big men. So I would say 60+% of his shots. You know, he's going to go to the foul line at least 7, 8 times a night. He's a horrible foul shooter, so he's only going to make 4. So you do the math. You know, what is that? 12 plus 4, 16. About 16, maybe 17 points a night. And I give Wilt about 15 rebounds a game, 15 and some change. I think he'd lead the league in blocks. I think he would average close to 5 blocks a game, if not around 5 blocks a game. You know, he would be in the MVP conversations because of shit like that. Even though he's playing a reduced role, I could see that. That's very reasonable. Robin's going to average his 14, 15 rebounds. Like I said, they're going to rock the boards. There are going to be some games where Robin and Wilt are going to combine for 50+ rebounds. But they're going to do their thing in the front court. Jordan and Pippen's going to do their thing in the back court. Don't forget about Ron Harper. You know. So, yeah. The Bulls are probably going to average well over 110 points a game. You know, 100 and I'm talking about the 90s now. They're going to average probably like 112 points a game. They're going to be killing teams. Shit. Now that I think about it, man, they might go something more like 79-3. But anyway, tell me what you guys think.